All right, so this is now done and it's dry mostly except for this one patch here. And what I'm going to do is take my design and transfer it onto my tile. So my tile has those 2 coats of underglaze, and then I'm gonna center this on here. Your piece of paper most likely will be the exact same size as your tile, so you will not have the same problem that I do. And I am going to, using hopefully a ballpoint pen, I'm gonna then trace over the lines of my design, okay? So I'm gonna put pretty decent pressure on this. If it rips the paper, that's okay. It's not ideal. We're just trying to create small indentations in the design, enough where we can see it to use our Sgraffito tool, okay? And right now, you can see a little bit how this is transferring on. I'll try and go a little bit faster just so you can kind of see what I have here. You could probably also do this with a needle tool. I'm just thinking out loud right now. So needle tool might work, although I like the how the pen feels as I drag it over the paper. I think it's a little bit, probably a little bit of a better feeling. All right, let's say I'm mostly done transferring this. All right, let's see what this looks like when I pull it up. Oh, I forgot to trace one of these things. Here we go. It's always good to kind of peek. Don't pull it all the way up, but just peek a little bit to see if you transferred everything. Aha, all right, there we go. So this is what I have right now for my design. I'll see if I can zoom you all in. Okay, and at this point in time, I'm going to use it's a Kemper loop tool, and it's designed for all kinds of different carving in clay. So you'll notice that there's one side that is small, one side that's a little bit longer. You can alternate and use these different sides for different purposes. So obviously, if you need to create a small line, use the small side. If you need to create a bigger line, you can use the bigger side, okay? I'm gonna start by just using the smaller side, and I'm gonna start to carve away the underglaze and carve into the clay. Now for Sgraffito, you don't have to carve super deeply. So this, again, this is just surface level carving. Okay, and so I'm going to start by outlining this shape. Kind of like so. And then I'm going to decide what sections that I want to carve away and what sections I want to remain. Okay. So with this, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is, now that I have this shape outlined, and I could outline all my shapes, it's not really a big deal, I can decide if I want to, rather than just outlining my entire design, I can decide if I want to make the background, keep the background as green, and carve away my shape interiors, or if I want to do it the opposite way. So I could actually flip-flop it and carve away this, okay? I think just for our purposes, I'm gonna carve away the shapes. So I'm gonna upgrade to my larger point here. And I'm going to carve away a little bit at a time. This shape. Now, keep in mind the following. With Sgraffito, if you're carving away a larger area through to the clay body, and you don't want your clay, the clay body that you're revealing to have any of the color of the glaze in it, you may have to go a little bit deeper. Also, keep in mind, a lot of times with Sgraffito, you see the lines, okay? So if I'm carving this away and I don't want it to look like destruction, right, where I've got all these marks going everywhere, the mark making is part of it, okay? So think about the direction in which you're carving, because that'll remain once it's fired, Okay, so I'm kind of carving away a little at a time. And because this is a curved shape, I'm going to curve my strokes here. Okay, now you'll notice that I'm accumulating a lot of this dust. So I'm going to take a nice clean and dry paintbrush here, and I'm going to just onto my paper towel, I'm going to knock all of those like sgraffito boogers right off there. Okay, and then I'll go back to carving. Oops, wrong side. This is the small side. Secretly wish I had a slightly larger tool, but that's okay. All right, so you can kind of see how I'm carving away the shape, and I'm thinking about my strokes, I'm thinking about how deep I'm carving here, okay, etc., etc. Now, just like I said before, I could potentially just outline whatever the thing is, whatever my design is that I've created, but I do kind of like my shapes and my design carved away with the green of the background. Okay, let's say I want to carve this area away here. Say I want to leave a little bit of that green within that shape. That looks kind of cool. I can totally do that. So if I want to incorporate that as part of my design. And as I'm carving, remember when you accumulate those crumblies, you can use that clean, dry brush to kind of scrape it right off. And remember, so with sgraffito, we are not carving super deep necessarily. Okay, we're just trying to carve away that underglaze layer. And really it's about mark making, line quality. And really, it can be an exercise in positive and negative space, right? Okay, so what part are you leaving the color of your underglaze? What part are you carving away? I'll try and do this next part kind of quickly because I don't want to waste your all's time. I'm going to start by outlining this one just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Now, just as a heads up, when this sgraffito tile is done, so essentially it's greenware, so unfired clay and underglaze. I have to bisque fire it first, and then when it comes back out from the bisque fire, this glaze will be matte. Okay, so it's not going to be shiny. The underglaze is just going to be pretty much the color it is right now, maybe a little bit darker, but not by much. And if I want it to be shiny, what I can do is I can add a clear coat, a clear glaze on top of it when it comes back from that bisque firing, and then I can fire it again. Really not a good idea to add that clear coat on it right now since this tile is not fired clay, so there could still be some structural issues with the firing of it if it's got that clear gloss on it. If, you know, it pulls apart, it explodes in the kiln, that gloss glaze is going to stick to your kiln. Okay, so we're going to try and avoid that by sending this, once it's dry, to a bisque fire, pass it back, add the glaze, glaze fire it. Play with the line quality with this. So you can do really small lines. So you could even use the needle tool for some really small sgraffito lines in here. That would be perfect. You can probably even use the larger loop tool, again, for some sgraffito marks. So really see what kind of surface level marks you can make with the Kemper tool here and with some of the other tools we have in the classroom. It looks like just brushing away with my finger doesn't work as well as the brush. Brush gets more of those sgraffito boogers off. Can also just use this to create repeated lines in the clay. That looks pretty cool. So yeah, this is all kind of about line quality. I wonder what happens when I drag it this way. Oh, really small line. So if I drag it on its tip, I've got this really nice detail line. That's perfect. All right, I'm gonna leave that as is. I think that's pretty much done. Okay, let me go ahead and wipe away this section. Love it. Okay, I would say as soon as I get these clay boogers off from this sgraffito tile is ready to be dried and bisque fired.